Hey guys, welcome back to Prepping in Progress. This is Kim. Today I wanted to talk about 10 mistakes preppers often make in their pantry. Now this is a list that I comprise mostly of things that we ourselves are guilty of. So stay tuned. Now this list isn't going to be in any particular order, but I wanted to start out with what we all do. We go to the grocery store and we start buying our foods. One biggest mistake that I see people make is buying foods that you don't even like. Stockpiling pounds and pounds of beans that you don't even care for beans, and that neither does anybody in your family. Now eventually, yeah, you probably might want to stock up on things for trade or barter, but when you're first starting out in your food pantry, you want to make sure that you are stockpiling foods that you yourself are going to want to eat. My husband loves Spam, but I do not, so I do not stock this for myself. But I do buy it for my husband. And each thing can be different from you. If you absolutely hate the taste of pinto beans, don't stockpile a ton of pinto beans. Do what works best for your family first and foremost. Make sure you have a good stockpile of food that you and your family are actually going to eat. Now, second on our list is not diversifying your food. You want to make sure you've got plenty of spices and a variety of different kinds of foods. Don't just go one type of bean or one type of rice. Diversify it in many different ways. Make sure you're having plenty of fats, many of carbohydrates and proteins. Diversifying your food so you can mix and match and make plenty of different recipes so you don't get food fatigue. It's a real thing. You get tired of eating the same thing over and over again with the same spices in it over and over again. One can only have red beans and rice so many times before you get sick of red beans and rice. So make sure you're stockpiling plenty of salts, peppers, different spices, and different kinds of foods where you can mix and match and play around with recipes so your family doesn't get bored of the same thing over and over again. Number 3 on our list is balancing your short-term and your long-term foods. Short-term foods are going to be things that don't last for years and years and years. And I see a lot of people stockpiling tons and tons of short-term food and completely ignoring their long-term. Or in the reverse, having stockpiles of long-term food, but not having anything in the short term. And other videos I've talked about where we've had little small mini disasters, a refrigerator going out, a couple of days power outage, where we weren't going to go breaking into our long-term food storage, but we had plenty of short-term food. But I also want to make sure that you are prepared for any long-term disasters and not forgetting to stockpile long-term. So you want to make sure you find a good balance between the two of long-term and short-term foods. Now, number 4 on our list is a big problem. I know for me, I had the worst problem of trying to get into the habit of rotating your foods. It's really hard if you don't have a good system in your pantry to learn how to rotate and keep track of ones you bought the last and which ones were bought months and months ago that you really need to use up first. So having a system in place to make sure you use the old ones first and put the newer ones towards the back is important to making sure you keep updated on your pantry and you're rotating through your short-term pantry foods. Number 5 on this list is improper storage. If you are buying all of this food and really taking the time and effort and your money where your mouth is to stockpile food, you want to make sure you are storing it properly so it doesn't go bad. Our biggest problem was just to buy rice and throw it in the pantry and not give it a second thought. And that's not the way to store it if you want it to last. We weren't rotating through it very quickly, and so we should have had it stored ready for long-term instead of our short-term pantry. Take great lengths of making sure that we Mylar our food. This is a 1 gallon Mylar bag, so we can buy smaller amounts and just put back little by little into these. And once these are filled up, we put them into a storage container to make sure that they are properly stored in the pantry, labeled and ready to go. Like I said, this is how they're supposed to be stored. Nice oxygen absorbed Mylar bag, no air in there, and it is a brick. But making sure that you store your food properly, that way it can be there when you need it. Number 6 kind of goes along with number 5 about storage, but it's freezing your food. A lot of people forget to, when they buy rice for their long term or beans or any of their legumes, Flour even can sometimes have small bugs in them that will spread and grow and eat through your storage. So you want to make sure when you buy rice or beans or anything that's going to be put into your long-term food storage, it's going to be sitting on the shelf for quite a long time. Freeze it first for a couple of days. We do about 3 days just to be on the safe side before we go putting it into our food grade buckets or into Mylar bags. But you want to make sure that we have come across a number of bags of food that have been eaten right through with whatever critters got left over from the farm. So make sure you're freezing your foods before you put them into long-term food storage. Now, number 7 on our list is making sure all your food is not in just one location. You want to make sure you are spreading your food out. That way you don't have to worry about if something happens in that part of the home, whether your basement floods or if your house gets hit by a tornado or whatever it may be. You want to make sure that your food is diversified in many different areas. We have some upstairs, we have some in a pantry here, we have some downstairs, but we also have plenty in our bug out location. So having food spread out is going to help you if something happens in one part of your home. It's not going to destroy all of your food storage. Now, if they're stored properly, a lot of your long-term food storage should be okay, depending on the type of disaster. But say, like I said, if a tornado hits your home and all of your food is stored in one location, there goes years of work down the drain. If you don't have a bug out location at the moment, a temperature controlled storage building is a great route to go to be able to store for long term. But also even just storing at friends' houses, or if you have a bug out location, that would be ideal. But not having all of your eggs in one basket. Number 8 is not keeping track of what you actually have. A lot of people are surprised at the levels of food that they have or don't have. Many assume that they have a year's worth of food, but if they actually counted, they may only have maybe 3 to 6 months because they haven't gone over to see exactly what they have in their food storage. They're not keeping track. The same thing goes for your short-term pantry. If you're not keeping track of what you have, you could be buying extra things and not remembering to get other things that you're low on. I even sometimes take pictures to take with me to the grocery store in order to see what I have and what I don't have. It's an idea to make sure you try to keep track of what you have. Better to have a running list of an inventory especially for your long-term food storage, to know exactly what you have and what you don't have. All right, so number 9 on this list is not knowing how to cook what you've actually bought. It's a lot of problems with a lot of people when they are first getting started. They buy tons and tons of bulk food and they kind of go prepper crazy when trying to get plenty of stockpile, but then they forget, how are you going to cook this food? If you've only ever cooked rice in a rice cooker, cooking it over an open flame can be a problem. Same thing with beans and not knowing how to soak or any other recipes that you know how to cook with them. It's important to know what you have and how to make different recipes and different combinations with what you have. Even if it's just the basics of rice and beans, knowing how to cook them. Even if you have MREs, say, if you've never opened up an MRE and tried cooking with one, it can be a little bit daunting reading over the package and trying to figure out how to cook with an MRE, because they're kind of self-explanatory, but I remember the first time I was kind of intimidated and not knowing what to do. First time I pulled open an MRE. But now that I've done it a few times, I'm quite confident when I take one off the shelf. So learning to cook what you have is going to definitely help. All right, the 10th one on our list is a simple one, but one that's near and dear to my heart, and that is going to be comfort items. If you're going through an event, stress levels can be very, very high. And if you're just eating rice and beans and barely getting by, it could be very daunting. And especially if you have young kids, or if you just anybody who just needs a pick-me-up. Having a simple peanut butter and jelly sandwich can really be a morale booster, or keeping some cocoa mix for making a simple chocolate cake or cookies or something like that, that will be not so much for survival, but for mental survival. And it's to definitely help you thrive and not just to survive day and day. So hope y'all guys enjoyed. These were our 10, or my 10 mistakes that I've made in the past, and I hope they help you to avoid those kind of mistakes. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I hope y'all like, share, subscribe, do all of the YouTube-y things, and come back to see us for another video. Thank y'all so much. Bye.